I am going to be really honest with you guys in this new episode of the Square Circle podcast hosted by yours truly, Marie Shadows, because I think that maybe the majority of people think that I might have changed. No, I just grew up. And if you've been with me all these years for the past 6 years, happy birthday to the Square Circle podcast, by the way. This month marks the 6 years of the Square Circle podcast. So if you've been with me all these years, you know that growing up doesn't mean leaving anyone behind. It just means seeing things a little more clearly. And being off of Twitter for some months, I think I got off of Twitter in July, and people are probably like, why do you keep bringing that up? Because it's part of the story, it's part of growing, it's part of the journey. And here on the Square Circle podcast, we like to talk about stories. So it's story time with Marie Shadows, ladies and gentlemen. So after being off Twitter for a while, growing a little bit on IG, and then being around threads, and then just redoing my Patreon, patreon.com/Marie Shadows, you sort of realize that the social media bubbles, they sort of forget about you when you are no longer within the algorithm, when you are no longer on someone's timeline. But I am very thankful for the few that have checked in on me while I was not on Twitter and just keeping me up to date with stuff and just being like, hey, how's everything going? Because let's be honest, these past couple of months until we got to October have been such a whirlwind of various different current events. And sometimes you can't really escape current events because it's happening all around us. The internet is at our fingertips, and videos, whether they are propaganda or not propaganda, politic or not politic, AI or not AI, everything is at our fingertips, and we consume so much content that sometimes it can burn us out, that sometimes it can make us react in different ways. And sometimes it's not a very good thing when we live chronically online, and it is definitely 100% across the board a mental problem and definitely just a society issue problem that I'm not even sure if it's ever going to be better. I'm not sure if it's ever going to come to a point where the government will get involved and start restricting stuff. And I was saying the same thing on the other Raja Jackson podcast episodes, that if enough degenerates end up doing this kind of stuff and getting in trouble and making violence, and we already see violence here and there, that eventually the government is going to step in and some restrictions may end up happening. It's happening over in the UK. But I say all this to just put things into perspective, that sometimes you need time away from certain platforms to really see what you really want to do, what kind of content you want to do, what you want to keep, what you want to put away for now. And you start to see things a little bit more clearly, and you can start to relax a little bit. And I could tell you that not being on Twitter for those months, it was definitely relaxing. Now, I did come back to Twitter within like the past week or so. And I basically had a aha moment. Not really an aha moment, but more like a realization that no one seemed to notice that I was gone. Because everything on social media is dictated by algorithms showing you the next argument where there is no solution in sight. Algorithms tend to show you the next propaganda. Algorithms tend to show you maybe some honesty, maybe some cute animal stuff. Algorithms can show you the next episode on someone's podcast. The algorithm trains people to be like, we need you to consume this every single day. And if your best friend is not there to ruffle some feathers, you're not going to notice that they're on the site or not on the site. And it was very humbling, I guess. Humbling. I guess my enemies would love to hear me say the word humble or humbling. But yes, I do realize and I do think that it was humbling to go back on and realize that no one really cared if I was gone or not on social media, aka Twitter. So then that means that I could still ruffle feathers without having some weird bot burner, maybe not a person, have a reply to me where it's just the most ignorant thing to reply with. So I can still ruffle feathers. Yay me. But yeah, being back on Twitter just teaches me that nothing really has changed. We still have arguments in the wrestling community, and it's still going back and forth. It's still people, or maybe not people, going after Jimmy Corderas and going after Nick Lapoca, which I believe I messed up his last name, but you get the idea. People still going after each other, nobody really wanting to find a common ground, no one really wanting to find solutions. And sometimes you do have to leave a site to come back to it later and see how it is, and the fire is still there. No one has put out the fire, no one has tried to be like, hey, stop it. But we try, right? We try. So what I'm saying is that I left at the peak of the toxicity, because not only did we lose Charlie Kirk, and because I spoke out on that and basically said that I am Charlie Kirk because I use my voice to put things into perspective, to talk a little about nuance and talk about the issues that happen in professional wrestling and speak up on behalf of that. And there is like a whole plethora of me being on other people's podcast episodes doing the same thing and talking about issues in professional wrestling, that I will continue to do that because that is freedom of speech for me to do that. What is not under freedom of speech is freedom of lies, which we will get to in a moment. But yeah, so talking about that had lots of people leave from the community, which is totally fine. Followers go up and down, but I rather have the real ones stay with me because I know your names and I know your little quirks. And every time that you engage, I'm like, hey, how's it going? What's up? Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in chat, because you are more than just a number within the 742 subscribers that I have on YouTube. And I know someone's going to put a comment down below saying that, ha ha ha, you haven't even reached 1,000 or something. You know, some little childish bullshit kind of comment. But I don't care. If I know your name and I know a nice characteristic about you or like a quirkiness about you, you know, I have acknowledged your presence. I see you, I hear you, and I say, hey, what's up? Welcome to chat. I even will defend you if I need to defend you on an episode of the Square Circle podcast, because people can be so rude and nasty and they don't realize it because they get a free pass to beat down somebody else verbally. They get a free pass from everybody else because they really do love bullies, but yet then will say and cry, hey, don't be a bully when they get bullied. And it's like, you can't have it both ways. You can't go and bully somebody, and then when you get bullied and outworked, you're basically crying for like, hey, stop it. No. So yeah, I rather have 100 true fans than 1,000 fake fans that will butter me up, that will kiss my ass. And the moment that I podcast about something or say something that they don't like, they want to try to enforce me to say it the way that they want me to say it. And I have experienced that within the 6 years of doing podcasting, within the 6 years of talking about wrestling. I have had commenters that would try to get me to say things that they wanted to hear versus what they needed to hear. And that's going to be my other motto or philosophy going forward. And that is, I am going to tell you what you need to hear versus what you want to hear. There are already enough podcasts out there in the wrestling space that will tell you what you want to hear, so that way you can keep giving them a super chat or a membership or, you know, just regular donation money. And that is the definition of grifting, because they will be the snake in the grass and they will shed their skin in order to please the audiences that they have built. Everything that the Square Circle podcast has done has been on honesty and trust and just speaking the truth. And if you don't like how the truth is spoken, then this podcast may not be for you. I'm not trying to alienate anybody, but like I say on Discord notes, that if the stuff that I say on here bothers you, you can stop listening to the podcast, you can calm down, and you can always return at a later date and listen to the rest of the podcast with an open mind. The door is never shut on people that tend to get very angry at the things that I say. However, you don't need to curse me out. You don't need to call me names. You don't need to be rude, nasty, and vile in the comments if you're not going to be intelligent about it and if you're not going to have a civil discussion. That's why I say that the door is not always closed. However, there is a difference between getting angry and not understanding something versus being vile. In the moment that you are vile and cross boundaries, that is when I have the right to be like, I don't want you on my page anymore, and I will block you. And it is okay for content creators to block people out of their lives. It is okay for content creators to block fans who just want to be a nuisance and an asshole, and you see no redeeming qualities. And even when you talk to them, you're like, I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, but it's not really working. So it is okay to make sure that you have your own boundaries set between you and a commenter or between you and a supposed fan. It is totally okay. If we have people that took a moment to breathe and maybe listen to a podcast episode twice, or maybe listen to a clip more than once, rather than having the reaction culture that we have within content creation, I think we will have a lot better conversations. And I was saying this in my other podcast episodes, mainly on Discord notes, when I talk about Charlie Kirk and that, like, all we want is conversation. This is why we create content. This is why we do the things that we do, and we have panel discussions, is to have conversations so that we could think about issues and other types of topics a little bit more deeply underneath the surface with people that we consider to have all of the knowledge on this particular topic. But lately it's been about like gotcha moments. It's been about like blaming one side, always one side, blaming one community, blaming one race. It's always been lopsided rather than trying to find some common ground within the issues that we disagree on. And it happens day in and day out in the wrestling community. I am trying to keep this as a wrestling podcast episode rather than like a Discord notes one, but it basically crosses over. It's the same thing. Also, getting back to the topic of thinking more clearly, not only is talking about Charlie Kirk and freedom of speech very divisive amongst people these days, but even before the unfortunate and yes, the unconstitutional death of Charlie Kirk, that Hulk Hogan had passed away in September, and I defended him because I honestly think that there needs to be more than just saying one word to make you the R word in all of its hard glory. Like, you need more than just a word, because society can go really, really downhill with the way that the other side likes to talk about words and say that words are violent. They are not violent. Actions are way more violent. Random attacks is way more violent than words. Now, if someone is talking shit to you and then they decide to throw a punch, please defend yourself. But words are just words. But with the crazy atmosphere and the crazy way that people think without logic, who knows? We might end up getting to a place in society that the simple words that I say on here could be considered violence. When I say, I love you, or when I say, I love people, or when I say that, hey guys, did you know that the sky is blue? Like, it's so beautiful out here. It's blue. There's some white clouds, and somebody could just say that all of that is violent and all of that is racist because I'm saying that the sky is blue and I'm not acknowledging that the grass is green. Or if I say I love you, it gets turned into something creepy and weird, but we tell our friends, hey, I love you, I miss you, I hope you're doing good. Nice little sentiments like that in the hands of the mentally ill can eventually just end up being policed because they like to police words, if that makes sense. Now, I know that's going from like 0 to 1,000, but you never know because nobody is checking them in to get the mental health that they deserve. And because of Hulk Hogan's death, everybody did not really care. I mean, specific people did not care. Specific people were being very, very loud, very, very judgmental, very, very mob-like. And it's like there was no need for that. And that was the breaking point for me. And that's why I left Twitter, because of the toxicity. You can't reason with people that have a lot of hate in their heart, like true hate. Rather than trying to listen to the other side, they rather just hate, hate, hate. And I said this before in the other podcast episodes, that the more hate that you tend to push upon others or try to breed, it's only going to be a never-ending loop of hating this, hating that person because of the color of their skin when they never did anything to you, or even prejudging somebody, or even judging them right there in front of you. Like, all of that is hate. And so it was a nice detox. And then realizing that nobody had a moral compass when it came to Charlie Kirk dying, because most of the people are brainwashed, really brainwashed. And then coming back onto Twitter, like I said, you realize that nobody cared that you were gone. Some people did, not everybody. And I'm just putting that into perspective. Please do not feel guilty. I am just letting you know my experience. So now we're going to get into the part of this episode where we're talking about the content, what's going to happen moving forward, and Patreon and Discord notes, and what's going to be happening. Obviously, always subject to change. We are going to be moving into a new era, which is the Make Honesty Great Again era, because I realized through self-reflection and just thinking about things and looking at stuff that we're at a point where honesty feels radical. And that's the scariest part. When somebody gets on a podcast episode and they start talking about honesty, and you have someone that really just wants to dismiss it, or you have Jimmy Kimmel go on his show and continue to give out lies. Do you remember the phrase earlier I used, freedom of lies? That you can have freedom of speech, but that does not mean that you can have freedom of lies. And I bring up Jimmy Kimmel because he lies. And I honestly do not like lying to the American people. I do not like it when that happens. That is just pushing propaganda so that way you can continue to have sheep. And we all know that sheep do not do research as much as they should. They take things at face value. They take things at surface level, and they do not talk to people outside of their comfy little bubble. And then they wonder why they sound so ignorant, but yet then they want you to make sure that you know that you're the ignorant one. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So you're probably wondering, why am I bringing up Jimmy Kimmel when this is supposed to be talking about wrestling? Because everything is connected. In wrestling, every wrestler performs for whatever character that they have. They have to follow a script, and this is what they play. Now, the other side is obviously Jimmy Kimmel reading a script, somebody writing these lies, and it's performative, and we can all see it, and it's a gimmick. And it's kind of sad that even when you do call it out, people will be like, oh, you're lying, because they heard it somewhere else and they didn't fact check it. Or they heard on CNN all of the lies and cut up headlines and stuff like that and spin narratives and try to make other people look bad when we're like, yo, that's not important. That's not an important issue. But let's bring it back to wrestling. So in the upcoming episodes, other than this update, I will be talking about the updated Roger Jackson situation. Newsflash, he could not pay another $50K to bail him out again. And I will be talking about the Mick Foley thing where he sends a message to President Trump, and we're going to go through that. And there's going to be a lot of nuances in that and perspectives, because, man, is Mick Foley out of touch with what is happening. And to the other content creators in the space, You guys need to follow other people that are on the ground and actually covering all of this rather than listening to headlines, rather than being stuck in your own communities, because everybody wants to keep each other down rather than uplifting and rather than teaching what's exactly that's happening or showing what's happening and being like, look, you need to go outside and actually see this stuff. And the third podcast episode, we'll be talking about the latest drama surrounding Dustin Rose and his response to a MAGA thread post. I was going to be like a MAGA thread tweet, but it's on IG threads, and people losing their mind when it's not that big of a deal. It is not. So I am going to go through that in all honesty, everything honesty, and it might be controversial to you. You may not like it. You may not want to hear the name Trump, but he's our president. This is America, and it is freedom of speech. And again, you might think that I've changed. I haven't. I just grew up and I'm really tired of the bullshit right now. The media plays you like a fiddle and you still fall for it. The same way in wrestling, when it comes to the so-called wrestling journalists and all of the news outlets, and everybody's still doing the same thing, especially just recently, the whole debate over Ridge Holland and his contract, when Ridge Holland clearly stated that his contract would not be renewed. So he got an early phone call and being like, hey man, listen, I know you're injured and apologies that you're injured, but you know how your contract is coming up in November 14th? Yeah, that contract, we just decided that we're not going to renew your contract. And somehow the anti-WWE crowd, aka the Wrestling Observer people and everybody else, were like, how dare they do this? So they just cut him. They can't do that. But yet then when an AEW wrestler is all like, yeah, my contract just ran out, they didn't renew it. Not a word. They're like, oh, business as usual. So this is why I am also frustrated and also like I'm tired of the bullshit. But, another reflection is that maybe I think I broke one of my other rules, because in Discord notes volume maybe 5, no, not 5, because 5 was about Charlie Kirk and 6 is about Charlie Kirk, and 7, maybe 7, because number 8 talks about that my culture is American. So Discord Notes volume 7 or maybe 4, I basically said that I broke another rule of not mixing religion and politics. And I think I broke another rule that might be an invisible rule, but I remember telling somebody else that do not engage with the Twitter people that you think that are stupid, especially the ones that have stupid wrestling takes or a wrestling take that may get you angry. And I'm being very general about it because there's a bunch of people before, I guess Twitter got like a really update and it got cleaned up a bit from everybody that decided to farm engage. But there were just times where someone would just post in the Discord about, look at this take, look at that take. And, it's one of those, but AEW did this versus WWE did that, or they're not upset about what AEW did, but they're upset about what WWE did. And most of the time I was just like, hey, stop engaging with them, and that it's not worth it to get like really angry at them. And I think I mentioned it before too, that like most of the people that post, they post and ghost, and they know that they get you triggered and they get you upset and angry, and they're going to be sleeping soundly while you're there angry trying to think of a comeback, and they're not really giving a shit about that tweet that they put there. And maybe I broke it, maybe I didn't, I have no idea. I'm trying to figure out things from the past to sort of be like, okay, so I'm changing this because of this sort of thing. Like, I don't know, I'm mentally doing that just to see this reflection journey through. But the reason why I bring it up is because some people may feel that way if they see an increase of me basically speaking my mind on political posts. And by the way, I really don't have a political stance. If you never heard me give me a label at all, then do not give me a label. The only label that you can give me is that I am opinionated. I am a female through and through. I am a woman. I'm in the wrestling space. And make honesty great again. You can give me that label, the MHGA, if you want to. But this is me just talking about wrestling culture, media, people, and just basically calling it for what it is, because it's annoying that not only do we have people lying to the American people, but we also have wrestling content creators and wrestling influencers that will on a daily lie to their audience in the wrestling community. And I just don't like lying. I just don't like that. You can sort of maybe like pull the truth a little bit if you need to protect somebody. I will give grace to that. But if you're outright lying to people, like we see in all communities, then it's not beneficial. How is it beneficial for people? You know? So I rambled a lot here. I really did. So this is what's going to be happening. And this is what I'm going to be sticking with, because right now I feel confident. And lately, before I did the MLW review, the latest one with Dose Evil, mentally, I was not ready to do most podcasting, but I decided to push myself and I was like, let's do this. Let's, get this out of the way. And we are going to be coming back October 25th for the next MLW show. So, look out for the MLW reviews. So this is what's going to be happening going forward for 7 years and beyond, right? If you still want to stay with me, be on this journey with me, and support me through a membership, a merchandise, and or maybe a one-time donation at Buy Me a Coffee, I will still welcome you no matter what. I was going to say I still love you. This isn't me trying to push anybody away, but I'm trying to find the right words. If you stick with me, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you decide this is where the journey ends for you and you don't want to follow the journey anymore or listen to the show anymore, then I wish you all the best. And again, this isn't me trying to alienate nobody, but I do know how things happen. Everything rises and falls, and people come back and people leave and people just find something else, or they stay neutral, or whatever it is. Now, the Square Circle podcast will always be about wrestling, and it will always be about show reviews. I do want Tape Study Series to make a comeback. I am probably going to put away Ringology, meaning that Ringology was supposed to be the bigger term for tape study, like the umbrella term for tape study, where I do videos explaining wrestling terms. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I wanted something cool to get over, like a Ringology shirt, because there are reactors out there like No Life Shaq, who has a shirt that says Barology because he breaks down bars to the best of his ability. So it was a play on that to have Ringology, but I might just end up putting that away. But again, everything is subject to change, but I do love Tape Study Series. Come watch a wrestling match with me and break it down. Like, I love that kind of stuff. I do want to have a live stream where I am basically breaking down MLW and doing some fantasy booking and some fantasy stories and stuff, and do something with that. I want to do more stuff where I'm not always talking about AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I'm going to be very, very honest. As much as I love watching WWE, I feel like me watching WWE, unless I am asked to be on a podcast show to review WWE. But as much as I love watching WWE, I find watching WWE as a hobby, so to speak, because everybody talks about WWE. I don't think that I can give a different opinion than somebody else. Maybe I could give a different perspective on stuff, but I watch it for fun. For AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling, I want New Japan Pro Wrestling to improve. because that's the alternative that we still need within the wrestling ecosystem. And I just want them to improve. So that's why I will be a little bit more harder and firmer on New Japan Pro Wrestling and what happens with the AEW partnership versus like WWE. Because right now, things are going good for WWE, TNA, and also AAA. Really going good, even though some people will probably be like, oh, you know, you don't talk about anything negative the same way that you do with New Japan and stuff. Like, people are mad parasocial and mad weird when you don't talk about the other company the same way that you talk about another company, and they might perceive it as being negative, but they don't really know what's truly being negative. They really don't know. I would definitely love to talk a little bit more about MLW, like I said, to help them out a little bit more, give ideas, and just have a really fun session. Like, those sessions are fun to do. I would like to get back into interviewing wrestlers and even non-wrestlers for the Crossroads interview series. Like, I remember I was so pumped at the beginning of the year, had the idea and stuff, and I really didn't do anything with it, only because it was a mental block, and sometimes you need to go at your own pace in order to get that clarity, in order to make sure that the content that you are creating, the content that you're passionate about, really, really shines through. Because if I know what the subject matter is about, and if I know how to position all of these shows and all these content ideas, and I tell you this stuff with confidence, then you guys can trust me, and then you guys can get whatever it is that you want to get, a membership, merchandise, or just a one-time donation. I never wanted to just go to the beat of any drum. I always go to the beat of my own drum, and sometimes I make it more complicated for myself than not, because I really care about what I'm doing. I really care about the quality of the podcast episodes that you guys hear, whether or not you agree with me or you do agree with me. And by the way, I do have to say this disclaimer, if it is going to be a disclaimer, that whatever I talk about, whatever thoughts that I share and how I share them and how I say them and how I think about them, you do not have to agree with me. I do not want people to blindly just agree with me. And there is a difference between people that understand where I'm coming from, and then there is a difference between people that are like, yeah, I really do agree with you because I think like this too. But I just don't want mindless sheep to be like, Marie could do no wrong and Marie is always right. Like, that's a good ego boost, guys. That's a really good ego boost. But remember, here on the Square Circle podcast and going forward, we are trying to make honesty great again. So it is okay if you don't agree with me. It is definitely okay. So I just want to make that clear. But yes, those are the kind of ideas that I'm thinking about going forward for the Square Circle podcast. Now, the reason why I have Patreon back up is because in one of the previous Discord notes, I explained that Fourth Wall is not community friendly. It's not. Community building friendly, I should say. It's really not. It is good for merchandise, and my Fourth Wall will always be for merchandise. So you do not have to sign up to make an account at Fourth Wall to be part of the community there, and I should have realized it earlier, but it is not for community building. Patreon over the years has stepped up because, again, being very, very young in the content creation game, I didn't understand how to get support as well as I do now. And Patreon has definitely upgraded a lot of things. I am on a legacy Patreon, so that means that they take 8% of the earnings. So when you decide to get the only one tier membership on the Patreon, it is only going to stay as one tier. We're not doing multiple tiers because I realize that shit is annoying. And for someone like me, that if you follow me for so many years, I changed this, I changed that, I don't feel strongly about this, I don't feel strongly about that. Sometimes my confidence tends to waver, and that's only because there's not enough conversation and there's not enough people poking in to be like, hey, stop changing shit. I'm here to listen to X, Y, and Z. This is why I say that conversation is very important. This is why I say that engagement is very important. This is why I say that leaving a comment on a YouTube video, a Spotify podcast episode, or wherever you see me, or if you want to DM me your comment, leaving a comment lets me know that I'm doing something right. We feed off of interactions. We feed off of comments. We feed off of a community that understands the person that they follow, wants the best for them, checks in on them, and basically, we feed off of that because essentially you guys become family. And that's a very good thing. We become family. We become friends. People have made, really good friendships and invite them over for a cookout or something. A great way to show appreciation for the community at large. So we sort of rely on that. I rely on that, unfortunately. So if you're ever wondering why I'm always constantly switching here, switching there, is because I'm trying to figure out what sticks and what gets over, and what stays and what doesn't stay, and then trying to find the confidence back up. But again, it also works when fans are motivated and fans, will leave comments and will be like, hey, I enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for doing all the hard work. Or, hey, I didn't agree with the middle part of your podcast, but I agree with everything else. And then also give me reasons why you didn't agree with the middle part of the podcast, conversation. And again, this is me being transparent with you guys about content creation and what we go through and the mental overload that we have, and also the mental capacity that we have in order to do this, because essentially we are relying on people. Even though they say to just post it, you'll be good, just do this, just do that, you still have to look at the other side of doing that. The more times that you just post maybe random stuff or post things without a care in the world, yeah, you'll gain an audience. It'll be slower, but sometimes it will be like, oh, is this even being seen by people? Because sometimes the algorithm can, shadow ban you or put you somewhere because they might think it's spam. So it's a double-edged sword to listen to the gurus to be like, just post, it'll go through, it'll be okay. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people do different types of posting on how they feel to post and what to do and what trends to look for. I'm just, again, giving you guys insight into a content creator's mind and the world and the things that we go through. Okay, back to Patreon. So patreon.com/Marie Shadows. Like I said, Discord notes will be exclusive to Patreon. I did set up a Spotify adjacent, so you guys can listen to it on there as well, but it is exclusive. Discord Notes Volume 8 is behind a paywall. However, there is a 25-minute preview of it over on my second channel, Discord Notes Podcast, over on YouTube. I will eventually put it up on Rumble as well. But yeah, I made a second YouTube channel so that way I can move all of the unfiltered thoughts over to that one, so that way it just doesn't really muddy the Square Circle Podcast main channel on YouTube. And I do have a very good amount of listens on the Discord notes where it's just me talking about things that I'm observing and other topics other than wrestling, because like I said, you do need an extra outlet in order to make sure that your main passion and your main love stays the way it is and you don't get burnout. So patreon.com/Marie Shadows will have a different bunch of topics. It's all honesty all around. We're trying to make honesty great again. And again, it's not really supposed to be a slogan or a label, not a political stance, just a promise to myself and you because of everything that I have seen, experienced, and some knowledge that I have and stuff that I want to talk about stories and talk about controversies and talk about things, because sometimes people live in such a bubble world that they don't want to hear other people's stories and they don't want to see what's out there. And I'm not saying that it's going to be like a main thing. You're going to get different topics on different Discord notes. It's about what I feel that day to talk about and what I want to present to you guys. Also on the Patreon, tape study series will be on there, obviously behind a paywall. So all new episodes of the tape study series will be behind a paywall. All of my previous ones that you can see on the Square Circle podcast will be uploaded on there, just so that way there's content on there and people can view it and hopefully get a membership. But most of the time it's going to be behind a paywall. Now, I haven't figured out if we want to do the live events and then it goes up behind a paywall, because then it doesn't make any sense. If anyone has some advice, let me know down in the comments below, whether you're listening to this on Spotify, YouTube, or even on Substack, and just let me know what's the best option to do, because the tape study series takes a while for me to do on my own, to stop, pause, think about this, talk about this, and break down the matches. And if I do it live, that's a lot more fun, but let's see what happens. The cool thing about Patreon now is that if you do sign up and you get the membership tier, which is just the $9.99, because I want to go off of the WWE network price of $9.99. But when you get the membership, we can now do live streams directly in the Patreon as a community. And I think that is a very unique and awesome feature. So that means that we could do it live for the amount of people that we get. And we could do a live tape study series, but Patreon exclusive, and we could do that. I would have to carve out like a very special day of every month for that to happen, which I think that would be cool. Again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Also on Patreon will live the new episodes of interviews. I have no one lined up. I need to mentally prepare myself for that, to start interviewing people again and just be comfortable with it. All of the previous interviews, I do not think I'm going to upload them all to the Patreon. I might, if I get some time to just do that, but all of the previous interviews that I have done, there is a playlist on Spotify called Wrestle Tales that I'm going to change the name around to, but there is a playlist with all of the interviews that I have ever done on Spotify as a playlist. So that way you don't have to go searching through the Square Circle podcast on YouTube and or Spotify. They are on Substack as well, but I don't think all of them are all on Substack. So you can go check those out if you want to. But I do want to get back into interviewing people. So these are the things that are going to be on there. So there is no limitation to what the niche is on the Patreon. The Patreon is going to be the HQ for Make Honesty Great Again. And that could be whatever I want to talk about, whatever I'm reacting to, and basically conversations. It's always been about conversations. I've changed the Patreon so much because I couldn't decide what it is. But I think when it all boils down to is honesty, a different perspective. And if you want to agree or not agree with me, that's totally okay too. But it's also about speaking your mind. It's also about making sure that there is real truth and value and some education behind the things that I say, behind the things that I break down, and just the knowledge that I want to give about experiences on social media, experiences as being a content creator, because man, is it lonely sometimes, and you get into your own head, and sometimes your confidence falls, and then you'll have days where you're like, I am on top of the world, and you'll have days where it's like, this is a blessing. Why am I being down on myself? We go through lots of peaks and valleys, and it's not very, glamorous. Like everybody wants you to believe. It's not that. I'm here to give you the real perspective, the real thing, without showing you a made up fake life that other people will gladly do and be like, hey, I'm on this jet going over to such and such, stuff like that. You get the real Marie Shadows. You get all of her opinions, all of her thoughts, and her perspectives and solutions to how to make the wrestling industry great again, even though there's a lot of flaws, and I totally get that. And by even me saying that we should be embracing the imperfections versus being perfect, because imperfections make the world go round. It's not a way to put a band-aid on stuff and make sure that no one ever does evil and make sure that no one ever does anything wrong or bad, and you have to be pure of heart. And it's like, that's not human. That's not the human condition. Everybody that advocates for this purity test and being like holier than thou, and then also using religion against people, and they want to be this high moral person, but they got skeletons in their closet. They have a really bad past that they never want you to find out about. And the moment that they do, they don't know how to react because their whole fake propaganda world comes crashing down. The only reason why I mention this is because these people will scream they are for human beings, right? They will say, I think of you as a human being, but you also need to pass this huge ass purity test. You also need to pass this huge ass wrestling quiz that I'm about to give you. You need to pass this good person test. And if you question this, you are public enemy number one. So, yeah, we are not going to treat this as a robotic kind of looking at the lens of this stuff very like they had to be pure and everything. No, we're going to embrace the imperfections. Professional wrestling has a lot of flaws, has a lot of dark corners, and definitely has a lot of bad things. But there is a lot of good that comes out of professional wrestling. There is a lot of happiness and joy. And there's a lot of improvement. There's always improvement in professional wrestling because it's not perfect. We don't want it perfect, but we want it in a way where it makes sense, where it's consistent, where it can have fans buying a ticket every single month to watch the wrestling that they enjoy. But if you're not going to allow the fundamentals to stick with the promotion, then you're going to have a very, very, very tough time, aka AEW. Because I always have to get an AEW punchline in on this podcast no matter what. Anyway, I think that I have rambled on. But before we close, I do want to say that if you are on Substack, marieshadows.substack.com, I will not be live streaming on Substack. I barely use the notes function on Substack. So you guys are just going to get the emails, and that's about it. If you are on Substack and you are listening to this episode and you made it this far, please consider heading over to patreon.com/Marie Shadows, because I will move all of my community to Patreon, which means that if you are part of the Discord of the chat community and or Shadows Den, I do need to send you guys a message. And yeah, my community now will live on Patreon. It is up to you guys if you want to move there. You guys will always get access to the free stuff that I will post just for you guys. So don't think nothing has changed. We're just growing. We're just growing with social media. We're growing with what we're doing. But I do want to move everybody to Patreon. And if you continue with me on this journey, thank you. If you decide not to continue on this journey with me, that is totally okay. That door will always be open for you to come back and basically rejoin us. Do not feel scared about rejoining us. Or if you just want to hang out during the live streams when they come back. And if you want to pop in the chat to say hi, you can always do that too. You don't have to make any commitments at all, but I will say this, that I do not have a timeline right now when I want to go back on live streaming. Again, this isn't an excuse, but this is just a little bit behind the curtains of just situations, but I am still sharing one laptop. I do have a throne wish list if anybody wants to help out and help upgrade the equipment needed to stream and needed to make more content so that way it could be on a consistent basis. The reason why I have 400 and plus episodes, including the Discord notes and stuff like that, is because I was able to have my own laptop rather than sharing my laptop, because things happen when you have two content creators in the household. Things could get a little tricky and, you know, messy and stuff. Well, there is the throne wish list if anybody wants to help out with that for us to get upgraded equipment so that way I can continue to do live streams and plan out content and all of that. Using a phone is not the same thing. It's not. And the only way to know if I'm going to be live streaming is if you sign up for free on patreon.com/Marie Shadows. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this very, very long update of me rambling. But if this has resonated with you, please share it with somebody. Please leave a comment. Let's get a conversation going. And as a reminder, in the upcoming episodes, we'll break down moments in wrestling, moments in culture, and talk about it and have a conversation about it. And I will try to put things into perspective and as honestly as I can. And if that is something that you rock with, I'll see you guys in chat. So one final time, ladies and gentlemen, head over to patreon.com/Marie Shadows, where we're going to make honesty great again, because lying does not lead to any type of progression that we need for society to thrive. Lying leads you into the lion's den to get eaten and to look foolish, and then you are by yourself alone and you think that the world is against you. If we had more honesty, if we had more empathy with the honesty, but be careful about empathy, and if we embraced more the imperfection, we will be a better society, because then we can understand each other, find common ground, and go about our day. Because the internet will make it seem like we're all close together because it is in real time, when the majority of us, every one of us, are in different states, different cultures, different environments, but yet then everybody wants everything to be the same and everything wants to be catered to. I should say everyone wants to be catered to, but you get the idea. So we're going to be very honest. We're going to still call out stuff in the wrestling industry, things that need attention, things that need some more nuance. And we're definitely going to be talking about when wrestlers end up talking about political stuff, but they don't know enough. And we are going to just teach things and talk about things and definitely make sure that it is honesty approved. And it might sound so slogan. That sounds very, very slogan. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap on this huge, long update of the Square Circle podcast and my mental and everything else. Look out for Discord notes, volume 9 and 10 coming soon, again on patreon.com/Marie Shadows. And I'll see you all on the next one.